Jason Patel had worked the night shift at Orion Business Tower for almost 3 years, and in that time he'd grown used to the silence. By midnight, every floor in the 24-story skyscraper went dark. Only the faint hum of vending machines and the mechanical sigh of air vents broke the stillness. Most nights, Jason passed the hours inspecting camera feeds, checking circuit panels, and waiting for the clock to strike 6. It was monotonous until that night. At 2:47 a.m., Jason noticed something strange on the monitor wall. The feed from elevator B showed the floor indicator blinking. The elevator was moving from the lobby to the 13th floor. That shouldn't have been possible. Access to the 13th floor had been disabled years ago after a minor fire in the maintenance section. No keycards, no power, at least that's what the blueprints said. Jason frowned, rubbed his eyes, and rewound the security footage. The video showed the elevator doors slide open in the empty lobby. No one entered, no shadows, no motion at all. Then the doors shut, and the elevator began to ascend. Smooth, deliberate, mechanical. Probably a glitch, Jason muttered, though his voice didn't sound convincing. He leaned closer to the monitor. As the elevator reached the 13th floor, the feed glitched again. Static lines cut across the screen, and for a single frame, something like a figure appeared inside, pale, blurred, standing in the back corner. Jason blinked. When the picture returned, the elevator was empty again. He switched to the hallway camera outside elevator B. Nothing. The corridor was silent, untouched. Even the lights seemed to flicker slower, as if the building itself were holding its breath. He should have ignored it, should have logged it as an electrical fault and gone back to work. But curiosity, or maybe something deeper, made him grab his flashlight and keycard. The lobby was colder than usual when he arrived. The kind of cold that prickled your skin from the inside. The elevator stood waiting, its digital display frozen on 13. The doors opened the moment he stepped near, slow and silent, like a mouth parting to speak. The air inside felt heavy, thick with dust and static. Jason hesitated, shining his light into the corners. Empty, just steel, mirrors, and the faint hum of power. Then the lights above him flickered. Once, twice, and the elevator dinged softly, as if acknowledging him. Jason stepped back. "Nope," he whispered. "Not tonight." He pressed the call cancel button on the wall. Nothing. The button didn't even light up. The elevator doors remained open, waiting. Jason turned to walk away when the sound of a soft chime echoed through the lobby. He froze. The doors slid shut behind him without anyone touching them, and the floor display began to descend. 13, 12, 11, 10. Jason stared at the numbers as they dropped, faster, then slower, then froze on 2:47 a.m. The building creaked. Somewhere above, metal shifted, groaning like an old voice trapped in machinery. Jason's flashlight flickered once, then steadied. The elevator doors opened again. Empty. But this time, on the reflective metal wall inside, Jason saw something impossible. His own reflection standing a few seconds out of sync, smiling faintly when he wasn't. Jason didn't sleep that day. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that reflection. His own face grinning a fraction too late, as if it had its own mind. By sunset, he'd convinced himself it had to be exhaustion. Maybe a reflection glitch from the lights. Logic was the only thing keeping him sane. Still, when midnight came, Jason packed his flashlight, his phone, and a fresh battery pack. He needed proof. He told himself he'd record whatever happened and report it to security management. A malfunction, nothing more. At 2:40 a.m., he set up his phone on the lobby desk, camera pointed directly at elevator B. "All right?" he muttered to the empty room. "Let's see if you do your little trick again." The lobby clock ticked painfully slow. The hum of electricity echoed through the hall like a nervous breath. Then, right on cue, the elevator dinged. 2:47 a.m. Jason felt the sound vibrate in his chest. The display above the door blinked to life, flickering through numbers as if searching for the right floor. Slowly, it began to descend from 24 to 1, then stopped. The doors slid open. No one inside. Jason raised his flashlight, stepping closer. The beam revealed a faint handprint on the stainless steel wall, smudged, greasy, and much too high to belong to him. His pulse quickened. "Hello?" he said softly, voice echoing off the marble. Silence. Then, from somewhere deep in the elevator shaft, came a faint click, 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 like old gears winding up. The elevator's interior lights flickered, and Jason's phone, still recording, picked up a whisper on its mic. A woman's voice, faint but unmistakable. "Going up." Jason froze. His breath misted in the air, though the lobby wasn't cold. The whisper came again, clearer this time. "Going up." Without realizing it, he stepped forward. The motion sensor above the door beeped and the doors began to close. Jason panicked and thrust his hand forward to stop them, but they snapped shut anyway, sealing him inside. The elevator jolted violently and started moving upward on its own. Jason's flashlight rolled across the floor as the cab rattled like something alive. He hit every button on the control panel. Nothing worked. Only the floor display responded, climbing past 2, 3, 4, 5. Each number flashed red instead of white. "Stop!" Jason shouted, pounding on the door. The elevator didn't stop. At floor 13, it halted with a sharp clang. The lights went out completely. Jason was swallowed by blackness. Then he heard breathing. Slow, heavy, wet, not his own. The phone's flashlight was still recording on the floor. Its dim glow caught movement in the mirrored wall. Someone standing directly behind him. He spun around. Nothing there. The elevator let out a low creak, like metal bending under pressure. Jason stumbled backward, heart racing. The breathing stopped. But now the mirror had fogged over. Words scrawled across it from inside. "You came back." The doors opened. Faint, moldy smell poured in. Jason aimed his light outside and saw a hallway, but it didn't belong to Orion Tower. It looked older. The walls were yellowed, wallpaper peeling, floor tiles cracked like dead skin. And from the darkness at the far end, something moved, slow, deliberate, dragging its feet toward him. Jason's flashlight trembled in his grip. The hallway before him looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Wallpaper curling, ceiling tiles sagging, black stains blooming across the floor like old burns. It didn't even smell like the rest of the building. This air was wet, heavy with rot and mildew. He took one cautious step out of the elevator. The door stayed open behind him, humming faintly. Its lights flickered, casting a soft pulse of red down the corridor, like the slow heartbeat of something alive. Jason swallowed hard. He aimed his light at the walls, scanning for signs, room numbers, anything that could explain where he was. There were none, just long stretches of corridor leading into darkness. He spoke into his phone, voice shaking. "Log 250, 8 a.m. elevator brought me to an unlisted level. There's no signage, no rooms. Smells like smoke." His own voice echoed back to him, faintly delayed, as if the walls themselves were repeating the words. Then, a sound, a faint metallic clink somewhere ahead, followed by dragging footsteps. Jason froze. "Hello?" he called. "Maintenance security. Is someone there?" The steps stopped. He raised the flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom, landing on something just around the corner. A shadow shifting across the wall. For a second, he saw what looked like a figure. Tall, thin, motionless. Jason stepped closer, and the light flickered. The figure was gone. Only the peeling wallpaper remained, and a single handprint smeared across it in something dark and sticky. He backed away slowly, heart hammering. The elevator doors were still open behind him, but when he turned to look, his blood went cold. There was no elevator, just a smooth, seamless wall. Jason ran forward, slamming his hand where the door had been. The concrete was solid, freezing cold. He hit it again and again. "No, no, no, come on." The hallway lights blinked once, then dimmed. The temperature dropped sharply. His breath came out in clouds. Then a ding. Jason turned. At the far end of the corridor, another elevator stood, identical to the one he'd arrived in. Its doors opened slowly, spilling a dim yellow light across the floor. Inside, someone stood. Jason's flashlight flickered, struggling to focus, but he saw a shape. A woman. Long hair, head tilted to one side, her hospital gown clinging to her thin body. She didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared. Jason took one trembling step backward. The woman twitched her head, fast, like a broken puppet jerked by invisible strings, and her mouth opened far wider than it should. A dry, scraping voice echoed through the hall. "You heard us calling." Jason screamed, turned, and ran blindly into the dark. The hall seemed to stretch endlessly, every door he passed locked or painted shut. Behind him, the sound of metal grinding and cables snapping filled the air. The elevator moving again. It was following him. As he sprinted, his flashlight flickered out completely. For one horrible second, Jason saw, reflected in the black screen of his phone, his own terrified face, and another face right behind him, smiling. Jason woke up lying on the cold tile floor of the Orion Tower lobby. His head throbbed, his throat burned, and his flashlight was gone. For a moment, he couldn't remember how he'd gotten there. The last thing he recalled was running down that endless hallway. The voice, the scraping metal, and the feeling that something had been inches behind him. When he checked his watch, it read 3:48 a.m. He blinked. That couldn't be right. He'd entered the elevator at 2:47. He'd been gone for an hour, but he didn't remember an hour. Just seconds of panic and darkness. The elevator beside him stood still. Its digital display was blank, the power indicator dead. The hum of the building had gone silent, as if even the air itself was holding its breath. Jason's phone was still recording. The battery was almost drained. He lifted it with trembling fingers and pressed play. The first few minutes showed exactly what he remembered. The elevator door opening, the empty hallway, his flashlight cutting through the dark. Then the footage grew shaky. Static rolled across the screen. His voice became distant, distorted. He could hear himself saying, "Hello? Who's there?" And then faintly a reply, not his voice. "Behind you." Jason's stomach twisted. The camera image froze for half a second, then caught a flicker of movement. A dark figure crawling along the ceiling above him, limbs bending the wrong way, face hidden in shadow. He didn't remember seeing that. He scrubbed forward. At the 2:56 mark, the camera showed him running, the image spinning wildly, before stopping in front of what looked like a wall of static light. The sound was full of whispers, hundreds of overlapping voices saying things he couldn't understand. Then, for just a moment, the picture cleared. A face filled the frame. Not human. Its mouth stretched from ear to ear, eyes black and weeping. It looked straight into the camera and whispered, "You stayed too long." Jason dropped the phone, his breathing sharp and ragged. He backed away, heart pounding. When he gathered the courage to look again, he noticed something else. The timestamp on the last video frame. 3:47 a.m. The recording had lasted almost exactly 1 hour. He hadn't just blacked out, he'd been missing. Jason stumbled to the security desk and checked the CCTV feed. Most cameras were dead, showing nothing but gray static. Only one was still online, the feed for Elevator B. He clicked it open. The live footage showed the elevator doors opening and closing in a slow rhythm, as if breathing. Then, in the reflection of the metal door, a figure appeared. At first, Jason thought it was his reflection again, same uniform, same posture. But as the figure raised its hand and waved at the camera, Jason realized something terrifying. He wasn't moving, but the reflection was. The figure smiled, his own smile stretched and wrong, before the screen glitched and cut to black. Jason's voice trembled as he whispered to himself, "What the hell is happening to me?" Behind him, the elevator dinged. 2:47 a.m. Again. By dawn, Jason had made a decision. He wasn't leaving without answers. He spent the entire morning digging through the Orion Tower's archives, hidden deep in a dusty basement file room that smelled of rust and paper. The air was stale, the flickering fluorescent bulbs humming like they were alive. Boxes upon boxes of blueprints, maintenance logs, and incident reports lined the metal shelves. After hours of searching, Jason finally found a thin folder marked Mechanical Level B. Inside were photocopies of the building's early construction plans. He froze when he saw it. Floor 13 was there, labeled clearly between 12 and 14. But it had been crossed out in red ink. Stamped access revoked, 1983. Beneath that note, another sheet was stapled. A faded newspaper clipping. 6 workers die in elevator fire. Company denies fault. The article explained that during the final stages of construction, an electrical surge caused one of the main elevators to malfunction. The car dropped 13 floors before bursting into flames. The bodies of the 6 workers were never recovered. The company sealed the level, renamed it, and scrubbed the records. Jason's hands shook. He flipped the page and found one last document, a memo from the building's original architect. Scrawled across it in pen were the words, "Do not restore elevator line B. It doesn't stop where it should." Jason's blood ran cold. He looked up at the ceiling, suddenly aware of the faint vibration running through the building. The soft, rhythmic hum of an elevator in motion. He checked his phone. 2:45 a.m. No, not again. He ran back to the control room and opened the live feeds. The monitor for elevator B had already turned on by itself. The feed showed the elevator doors sliding open in the empty lobby. Smoke drifted lazily from inside the cab, though the camera caught no fire. Then something moved in the reflection of the metal doors. Jason leaned in, heart thudding. The shape was faint at first, but as the static cleared, he saw it. A man in a construction uniform, his face blackened, skin melted like wax. He stood still, staring at the lens. Then another figure appeared behind him, and another, 6 in total. Each one turned its head toward the camera, mouths opening in silent screams. Jason stumbled back from the desk. The lights flickered overhead, and the temperature dropped sharply. His breath misted in front of his face. The monitor speakers crackled to life with a distorted voice. "You took the lift." Jason's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, and the screen displayed the elevator's floor tracker, moving up, slowly, as if something inside was coming closer. 1, 2, 3, 4. He backed toward the lobby. The ding echoed again, deep and mechanical. The air smelled of smoke and burned oil. Jason raised his eyes toward the elevator display. Stopped on 13, even though officially that floor didn't exist. And then, on the security feed, he saw something that made his blood freeze. His own reflection standing inside the elevator. It wasn't just watching. It was smiling. Jason stared at the monitor, frozen in disbelief. His reflection, or whatever it was, stood inside elevator B, smiling back at him through the feed. It tilted its head, movements jerky and unnatural, as though it were trying to mimic him but didn't quite know how. The elevator door on the screen began to close. Jason's pulse spiked. He sprinted toward the lobby, phone in hand, its flashlight beam slicing through the dark. The building was silent except for the low groan of cables shifting behind the walls. When he reached the lobby, the elevator was already waiting. Doors open, lights humming softly, an invitation. He hesitated. His phone vibrated. A new message from an unknown number. "Come up." The moment he read it, the doors snapped shut. The floor display flickered to life on its own. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jason's heart hammered. He pounded on the metal doors. "Stop! Stop!" The elevator ignored him, rising faster and faster. The numbers blurred. Then, suddenly ding. The doors slid open to reveal the same decayed hallway he'd seen before, wallpaper scorched and peeling, the smell of burnt plastic thick in the air. He stepped out slowly, filming everything. The camera caught faint whispers, distant and layered, like multiple voices speaking in unison. "You took our place. You're next. Stay." The corridor stretched endlessly. Jason turned, trying to retreat back into the elevator, but it was gone again, replaced by another seamless wall. His phone light trembled over a sign half buried in ash. Construction crew, maintenance access. And beneath it, 6 helmets, arranged in a neat line. Each one charred black, initials etched on the front. Jason knelt, brushing away the soot. The last helmet read, JP, his initials. He stumbled back, breath-catching. No, no, that's not possible. The air grew colder. The lights above him flickered, one by one, until only a single bulb glowed dimly overhead. From the far end of the hall, the 6 burnt figures appeared again, stepping slowly toward him. Their mouths opened, revealing nothing but darkness. The walls began to vibrate, not from footsteps, but from machinery. An elevator descending. Jason turned. A new set of doors had materialized behind him. They opened to reveal a bright white interior, humming softly like a heartbeat. Inside, he saw himself, calm, clean, untouched, standing still with eyes closed. The other Jason raised his head and whispered, "The ride ends here." The burnt workers stopped walking. The hallway warped and folded inward, the light stretching and snapping like elastic. Jason's phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor, still recording. The last image it captured was his terrified face reflected in the elevator's mirrored walls, and behind him, the 6 ghosts stepping inside. 2 days later, security found the phone lying in the lobby. No sign of Jason, but every night at 2:47 a.m., Elevator B powers on by itself. It rises to the 13th floor, a floor that doesn't exist in the building plans, before returning empty. If you watch the footage closely, though, for just a fraction of a second, you can still see Jason standing inside, smiling, waiting for the next ride.